When the little boy looked up at me with those wide hazel eyes and whispered, "Good night, Mom," I felt my entire world tilt on its axis. I wasn't his mother. I was just the babysitter. Or at least that's what I thought I was. My name is Elena, and for the past 6 months, I'd been living what I thought was a simple, quiet life. After my divorce 2 years ago, I'd moved to a small rental house on Maple Street, started working part-time at the library, and picked up occasional babysitting jobs to make ends meet. At 43, I wasn't looking for complications. I'd had enough of those to last a lifetime. The Johnson family seemed perfect when I first met them. Rebecca Johnson had called me in early April, her voice warm and professional over the phone. She needed someone reliable to watch her 6-year-old son, Daniel, 3 afternoons a week while she worked late at the hospital. She was a nurse practitioner, she explained, and her husband traveled frequently for business. The pay was generous, and Daniel was described as a sweet, quiet boy who loves books. I should have known then that something felt off. Not wrong exactly. Just incomplete. Like a sentence missing its punctuation. When I arrived at their home that first day, Rebecca greeted me at the door wearing pale blue scrubs, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She was younger than me, maybe 35, with the kind of tired smile that nurses and mothers wear like a second skin. The house was beautiful. A 2-story colonial with cream-colored walls and family photos lining the hallway. But I noticed something strange right away. In every photograph it was just Rebecca and Daniel. No husband. No father figure standing beside them at birthday parties or holiday gatherings. Just a mother and her son frozen frame after frame. "My husband's away on business," Rebecca said when she caught me looking. Her voice was steady but her eyes flickered. "He travels a lot. Oil industry." I nodded, accepting the explanation without question. Why wouldn't I? People have complicated lives. Marriages have distance. I of all people understood that. Daniel appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching a worn stuffed elephant. He was small for 6, with messy brown hair and those remarkable hazel eyes that seemed to hold more awareness than a child his age should possess. He didn't run down to greet me. He just stood there watching as if trying to decide whether I was safe. "Daniel, come say hello to Miss Elena," Rebecca called gently. He descended slowly, one careful step at a time, never taking his eyes off me. When he reached the bottom, he extended a small hand. "Hello," he said formally. "It's nice to meet you." His manners were impeccable, almost too perfect for a 6-year-old. I shook his hand, feeling the delicate bones beneath his skin, and smiled. "It's nice to meet you too, Daniel. That's a very nice elephant you have." "His name is Grayson," Daniel said seriously. "He's been with me since I was born." Rebecca gave us both a quick tour, the kitchen where snacks were kept, the living room where Daniel could play, the strict rules about screen time and bedtime. Then she was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of lavender and a list of emergency numbers on the refrigerator. The first few weeks were uneventful. Daniel and I fell into an easy routine. I'd arrive at 3 o'clock and we'd have a snack, usually apple slices and cheese crackers. Then he'd do his homework at the kitchen table while I read nearby, ready to help with spelling words or math problems. Afterward, we'd read together, curled up on the couch with picture books and chapter books about dragons and faraway kingdoms. He was a quiet child, almost unnaturally so. He never threw tantrums or demanded things. He said please and thank you without prompting. He ate whatever I prepared without complaint. But there was something in his eyes, a watchfulness, a hunger for something I couldn't quite name. "Miss Elena," he asked one afternoon in May, while we were reading Charlotte's Web, "do you have children?" The question landed like a stone in still water. "No," I said softly. "I don't. Did you ever want them?" I closed the book, marking our place with my finger. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you'd spent your 30s trying, that you'd endured 3 miscarriages and countless specialists, that your marriage had crumbled under the weight of grief and blame? "Yes," I said simply. "I wanted them very much." He nodded, as if this confirmed something he'd suspected. Then he leaned his head against my shoulder, just for a moment, before sitting up straight again. "You'd be a good mom," he whispered. My throat tightened. I smoothed his hair back from his forehead, a gesture that felt both natural and dangerous. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's very kind." We went back to reading, but something had shifted between us. A door had opened just a crack. Rebecca always came home around 7:30, looking exhausted but grateful. She'd pay me in cash, ask about Daniel's day, and walk me to the door. Our conversations were pleasant but surface level. She never volunteered information about her husband, and I never asked. It wasn't my place. But by mid-June I started noticing things. The mail on the hall table was always addressed only to Rebecca Johnson. Never Mr. and Mrs. Never a man's first name. The bathroom contained only women's toiletries. No shaving cream, no men's cologne. The closet in the entryway held only Rebecca's jackets and Daniel's small coats. No men's shoes by the door. No briefcase or laptop bag. And Daniel never mentioned his father. Not once. It was a Tuesday in late June when everything started to unravel. I arrived at 3 o'clock as usual, letting myself in with the key Rebecca had given me. The house was quiet, sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows and casting golden rectangles across the hardwood floor. I called out for Daniel, expecting to hear his footsteps on the stairs. Silence. Daniel. I called again, louder this time. A muffled sound came from upstairs, not quite crying but close. I climbed the stairs quickly, my heart picking up speed. His bedroom door was half open, and I found him sitting on his bed, knees pulled to his chest, his face buried against Grayson the elephant. Daniel, sweetheart, what's wrong? He looked up and his eyes were red-rimmed. In his hand was a crumpled piece of paper, a school assignment from what I could see. We had to draw our families today, he said, his voice small and broken. For Family Day. He held out the paper with a trembling hand. I sat down beside him and took it gently. The drawing showed 2 stick figures, one tall with yellow hair labeled Mom, and one small labeled Me. In the corner, almost hidden, was another figure drawn in lighter pencil, as if he tried to erase it but couldn't quite commit. This figure was taller with brown hair, and had no label at all. Who's this? I asked softly, pointing to the unlabeled figure. Daniel's lower lip quivered. I don't know. I wanted to draw my dad, but... He trailed off, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Mom says he's away working. But he's always away. He's been away my whole life. The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled Daniel close and he didn't resist. He curled into me the way a much younger child would, seeking comfort he'd probably been denied for too long. When Mom picked me up from school, she saw the drawing. She got really quiet. Then she said we'd talk about it later, but we never did. We never talk about him. I held him, rocking slightly, trying to find words that wouldn't betray Rebecca's trust but wouldn't lie to this hurting child either. Sometimes, I said carefully, grown-ups have complicated situations, but that doesn't mean your dad doesn't love you. Even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. What kind of father stays away from a child like Daniel? What kind of man misses 6 years of bedtimes and skinned knees and first days of school? We sat there until Daniel's breathing evened out. I suggested we make cookies, chocolate chip his favorite, and he agreed with a small nod. We spent the afternoon in the kitchen, measuring flour and sugar, and I watched him carefully place each chocolate chip as if it were precious. When Rebecca came home that evening, she looked more exhausted than usual. Her shoulders sagged, and there were new lines around her eyes. She barely glanced at the plate of cookies on the counter. How was he today? She asked, her voice flat. He had a hard day at school, I said, choosing my words with care. They did a family project. Rebecca closed her eyes. I know. His teacher called me. We stood in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken things. I wanted to ask. I wanted to understand. But it wasn't my place and I knew it. So I gathered my bag, accepted my payment and left. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few weeks I started paying closer attention. Daniel's comments. Rebecca's evasions. The complete absence of any masculine presence in that house. And then one afternoon in early July, Daniel said something that made my blood run cold. We were in the backyard, blowing bubbles in the summer heat. Daniel was laughing, a rare, genuine sound, when suddenly he stopped and looked at me with those 2 wise eyes. Miss Elena, do you think someone can forget what their dad looks like? I froze, a bottle of bubble solution in my hand. What do you mean, honey? I used to have a picture of him in a frame by my bed. But one day it was gone, and Mom said she put it away for safekeeping. That was 2 years ago. I can't remember his face anymore. I try, but it's all blurry like looking through water. My chest tightened. Have you asked your mom if you could see the picture again? He nodded, looking down at his feet. She says maybe soon. But soon it will never come. That night after Rebecca came home, I made a decision. It went against every professional boundary I'd ever set for myself, but I couldn't ignore what I was seeing anymore. Rebecca, I said, lingering at the door instead of leaving immediately. Can I talk to you for a moment? She looked surprised but nodded, setting down her purse. Of course. Is everything okay? Daniel's been asking about his father. The change in her expression was instant. Her face went pale then flushed. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. That's not your concern, she said, her voice suddenly sharp in a way I'd never heard before. I know it's not. But he's hurting, Rebecca. He's 6 years old and he doesn't understand why his father isn't here. Why are there no pictures? Why does no one talk about him? You don't know anything about our situation. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears now, anger and pain mixing together. You're right. I don't. But I know that little boy. And I can see what this is doing to him. Rebecca turned away from me, her shoulders shaking. For a long moment the only sound was the ticking of the clock in the hallway, the same clock that had witnessed so many of my quiet afternoons with Daniel. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. His father doesn't travel for business, Elena. He's not coming back. He's never coming back. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Rebecca turned back to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not just pain but shame. The kind of shame that burrows deep and makes a home in your bones. He left when I was 4 months pregnant, she said, her voice hollow. Just left. No explanation, no forwarding address. I came home from work one day, and half his things were gone. There was a note on the kitchen table. 3 sentences. I can't do this. I'm not ready. I'm sorry. I felt my legs weaken, and I leaned against the doorframe for support. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Everyone's sorry. My mother was sorry. My friends were sorry. The therapist I saw for 6 months was sorry. But sorry doesn't change the fact that my son has been asking about his father since he learned to talk. And I have no answers for him. Does he know? That his father chose to leave? No. She shook her head violently. How do you tell a child that? How do you look into those innocent eyes and say, your father saw the ultrasound photo and ran? So I lied. I said he travels for work. I said he loves him but has to be away. I kept one photo, just one. And I let Daniel keep it by his bed until he started asking too many questions. When is Daddy coming home? Why doesn't he call? Can we visit him? Her voice cracked on the last word, and tears finally spilled down her cheeks. I took the photo away because every time Daniel looked at it, I could see the hope dying a little more in his eyes. I thought if I removed the reminder he'd stop asking, stop hurting. But that just made it worse, didn't it? I didn't know what to say. There were no right words for this kind of pain. Rebecca wiped her face roughly with her palms. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you this. You're his babysitter, not his therapist or mine. I'm also someone who cares about him, I said quietly. And about you. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw her shoulders drop slightly, as if she'd been holding them up through sheer force of will and had finally run out of strength. He's starting to call you Mom. You know? She whispered. Last week when I came home he was half asleep on the couch. I heard him mumble it. Night, Mom. Before he realized I was there and corrected himself. My heart stopped. Rebecca. No, it's okay. She held up her hand. At first I was hurt, jealous even. But then I realized. You're giving him something I can't. You're present in a way I'm not. You're here every afternoon with your full attention, your patience, your warmth. You do crafts and read stories and listen when he talks about his day. I'm so exhausted by the time I get home that I barely have energy to make dinner and enforce bedtime. You're doing the best you can, I said firmly. You're working to provide for him, keeping a roof over his head. But I'm not enough, she interrupted. I'm not a father. I'm not two parents. And no matter how hard I try, I can't fill that hole in his heart. We stood in silence for a moment, both of us crying now. The evening light had faded to purple twilight, and somewhere outside a dog barked. What if, I said slowly, the idea forming even as I spoke, I could be more than just his babysitter? Rebecca's eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean, what if I became a consistent part of his life? Not replacing you, never that, but being another steady presence. Someone he can count on. Elena, I can't ask you to do that. It's too much. You're not asking. I'm offering. And I meant it. In that moment, standing in Rebecca's hallway with tears on both our faces, I realized something had shifted in me over the past 3 months. Daniel had worked his way into my heart in a way I hadn't expected. His quiet questions, his careful manners, his hunger for attention and love, it had all awakened something in me I thought had died with my last miscarriage. Rebecca studied my face, searching for something. Why? Why would you want to take this on? Because I wanted to be a mother my whole life, I said simply. And maybe I can't be his mother, you are and you always will be. But maybe I can be something else. An aunt. A mentor. A safe person who shows up. She was quiet for a long time. Then finally she nodded. Okay. But we do this right. No confusion for Daniel about roles. You're Miss Elena. I'm Mom. But you can be more present. Deal. We shook hands and it felt like a promise. After that conversation, things changed. Rebecca started asking me to stay for dinner sometimes. I began coming on weekends, taking Daniel to the park or the library or the small ice cream shop downtown. We developed our own traditions. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon art projects, bedtime stories that stretched longer and longer, because neither of us wanted them to end. And Daniel bloomed. The quiet, watchful child began to laugh more freely. He'd run to the door when I arrived, chattering about his day before I'd even set down my bag. He started drawing new pictures, ones that included 3 people now. Mom, me, and Miss Elena. I should have known it was too good to last. It was a Thursday in late August when Rebecca called me, her voice strange and tight. Elena, can you come over tonight? After Daniel's in bed? We need to talk. My stomach dropped. Is everything okay? Just, please come. 8 o'clock. I arrived at 8 sharp, my mind racing through possibilities. Had I overstepped? Did something wrong? Was she ending our arrangement? Rebecca opened the door wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger this way and more vulnerable. Come in. I made tea. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 mugs of chamomile between us. Rebecca wrapped her hands around her mug as if it were winter instead of late summer. I need to tell you something, she said. About Daniel's father. My hands tightened around my own mug. Okay. Rebecca took a shaky breath. He contacted me 2 days ago. After 6 years of silence, he sent an email. The room seemed to tilt. What did he say? He's getting married to someone he met a year ago. And apparently, his fiancée is pushing him to resolve his past. She thinks he should meet Daniel. Establish a relationship. Rebecca's voice dripped with disgust. After 6 years of pretending his son doesn't exist, he suddenly wants to play father because his new girlfriend thinks it's the right thing to do. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and protective. What are you going to do? I don't know. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Part of me wants to tell him to go to hell. He doesn't get to waltz back in after abandoning us. But the other part. She lowered her hands and her eyes were anguished. The other part knows Daniel deserves to have a father. Even one who left. Even one who's only coming back out of guilt. What does your gut tell you? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her tea as if it held answers. My gut tells me he's going to hurt Daniel again. That he'll show up for a few months, play the devoted dad, and then disappear when it gets hard or inconvenient. And Daniel will be the one left picking up the pieces. Then don't let him back in. But what if I'm wrong? Rebecca's voice broke. What if he's genuinely changed? What if his fiancée has helped him grow up? Don't I owe it to Daniel to at least consider it? I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to protect Daniel from the kind of disappointment that could shatter a child. But I also knew this wasn't my decision to make. Have you responded to him yet? No. I've read the email probably 50 times, but I can't bring myself to type a reply. What do I even say? Thanks for abandoning your son, sure, come meet him? Or stay away from us? Maybe, I said carefully, you ask him what he wants. I really want to. Not what his fiancée wants, but what he's prepared to commit to. Rebecca nodded slowly. That's smart. I could ask him to meet me first. Without Daniel. See if he's serious. And if he is? Then I'll have to tell Daniel the truth. All of it. Her voice cracked. I'll have to explain that his father didn't travel for work, that he left, and that he's back now, but there are no guarantees. We sat in silence, the kitchen clock marking seconds that felt too heavy. Will you help me? Rebecca asked suddenly. If this happens, if he comes back, Daniel's going to need stability. Someone who won't leave. And that's you, Elena. You've been more consistent in his life these past 4 months than his father ever was. Of course, I said without hesitation. Whatever you need. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you. For everything. For caring about him the way you do. That night I drove home with my mind spinning. I thought about Daniel's drawing with the unlabeled figure in the corner. I thought about the way he'd started reaching for my hand when we crossed streets. I thought about the night just last week, when he'd fallen asleep during story time with his head in my lap, and how right it had felt. I also thought about the danger of getting too attached. This wasn't my child. This wasn't my life. I was an outsider who'd been invited in temporarily, and if Daniel's father came back, where would that leave me? But I couldn't walk away. Not now. 3 days later, Rebecca texted me. Meeting him tomorrow. Coffee shop on Main. Wish me luck. I picked up Daniel that afternoon as usual, and he was his normal cheerful self, chattering about a caterpillar he'd found at recess. He had no idea his entire world might be about to shift. Miss Elena, he said while we were making snacks, you know how some kids have 2 homes? Like their mom's house and their dad's house. My heart seized. Yes, sweetheart. Some kids do. Do you think I'll ever have that? I set down the knife I'd been using to slice apples, buying myself time. Why do you ask? He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Tommy at school has 2 houses. He says it's kind of fun because he gets 2 bedrooms and 2 sets of toys. But he also says sometimes it's sad because he misses whichever parent he's not with. That sounds complicated. Yeah. Daniel picked at a loose thread on his shirt. But at least he has a dad who wants to see him. Even if they don't live together. The word struck me like a hammer. This 6-year-old child, with his careful observations and quiet longing, understood far more than Rebecca realized. I knelt down to his level. Daniel, you are so loved. You know that, right? I know Mom loves me. He finally looked up and his eyes were shining. And I think you love me too. You don't have to say it, but I can tell. You always remember my favorite things, and you never act like spending time with me is boring. My throat closed up completely. I pulled him into a hug, and he wrapped his small arms around my neck. You're very special to me. I whispered into his hair. Very, very special. We stayed like that for a long moment, and I felt something shift inside me. A click like a door locking into place. This child, this beautiful, perceptive, careful child, had become mine in every way that mattered, even if biology and law said otherwise. The next evening, Rebecca called me after Daniel was in bed. I met with him. And he cried. Actually, I cried. Said leaving was the biggest mistake of his life, that he was young and scared and stupid. He's been in therapy for the past year working through his issues. His fiancée's name is Amanda, and she's apparently been encouraging him to make amends. Do you believe him? There was a long pause. I don't know. He seemed genuine. But genuineness doesn't erase 6 years. What did you tell him? I told him he could meet Daniel. Once. Supervised. And that if he commits to this, there's no backing out. Daniel can't handle another abandonment. My stomach dropped. When? 2 weeks. I need time to prepare Daniel. To tell him the truth. The following Saturday, Rebecca asked me to come over early. Daniel was at a birthday party, giving us time to talk. I'm telling him tomorrow, she said, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. After breakfast. I've practiced it 100 times, but I still don't know if I'm doing the right thing. There's no perfect way to do this, I said gently. But he needs to hear it from you, and he needs the truth. Will you be here? After I tell him? I think he'll need you. Of course. That Sunday I arrived at noon. Rebecca's face was blotchy and swollen when she opened the door. Daniel sat on the couch, clutching Grayson, his eyes red but dry, as if he'd cried himself empty. Hey, sweetheart, I said softly, sitting beside him. He didn't speak. He just crawled into my lap. Something he hadn't done in weeks, being at an age where he was trying to act like a big kid. But today he was just a small hurting child who needed to be held. Mom told me about my dad, he whispered against my shoulder. He didn't really go away for work. He just left. I know, honey. I'm so sorry. She said he wants to meet me now. In 2 weeks. He pulled back to look at my face. Do you think he'll like me? The question broke me. This child, who'd done nothing wrong, was worried about whether his own father would approve of him. Daniel listened to me. I cupped his face in my hands. You are wonderful. You're kind and smart and funny and creative. If your father doesn't see that, it's not because of anything wrong with you. It's because of something wrong with him. Do you understand? He nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering in his eyes. 6-year-olds can't fully grasp that adults make mistakes that have nothing to do with a child's worthiness. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Daniel oscillate between excitement and terror. One moment he'd be drawing pictures for his dad, practicing what he'd say. The next he'd go quiet and withdrawn, barely touching his food. Rebecca wasn't doing much better. She'd lost weight, dark circles forming under her eyes. She checked her phone obsessively, as if expecting his father to cancel at any moment. What if this ruins him? She asked me one evening while Daniel was brushing his teeth. What if meeting his father and then losing him again does permanent damage? You can't protect him from every hurt, I said, though the words felt hollow. All you can do is be there to catch him when he falls. The day of the meeting arrived, a sunny September afternoon that felt cruelly cheerful. Rebecca had arranged to meet at a park neutral territory. I wasn't supposed to be there, but Rebecca had asked me to wait in my car nearby just in case. I parked where I could see the playground and waited. At 2 o'clock, a silver sedan pulled up. A man got out, tall, dark-haired, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. Even from a distance I could see the resemblance. Daniel had his eyes, his build, the shape of his mouth. Rebecca and Daniel were already at the playground. I watched as the man approached them, his steps hesitant. Rebecca stood like a wall between him and Daniel, her body language protective and rigid. They talked. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the body language. The man knelt down to Daniel's level. Daniel took a step closer, then stopped. The man said something. Daniel nodded. Then slowly the man opened his arms. And Daniel, after a moment's hesitation, stepped into them. I felt tears stream down my face as I watched this reunion I wasn't sure I believed in. The man, I couldn't think of him as Daniel's father, not yet, held his son for a long moment. When they separated, they sat on a nearby bench, and the man pulled something from his pocket. A small wrapped gift. Daniel opened it carefully, as he did everything. Even from this distance I could see his face light up. They talked for another 30 minutes and then it was over. The man stood, said something to Rebecca, ruffled Daniel's hair, and walked back to his car. He drove away and I saw Daniel's shoulders slump. Rebecca texted me, "Can you come? He needs you." I walked to the playground and Daniel ran to me before I'd made it halfway there. He crashed into me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "He gave me a book," Daniel said, his voice muffled against my shirt. "About a boy and his dog. He said it was his favorite when he was my age." "That's nice, sweetheart." He said he's sorry, that he made a big mistake, and that he wants to see me again next week. How do you feel about that? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't know. He was nice, but he's a stranger." "Is that weird? That my dad feels like a stranger?" "No," I said firmly. "That's not weird at all. It takes time to know someone, even if they're related to you." Rebecca joined us and the three of us walked to the parking lot together. Daniel held both our hands, swinging between us like a bridge connecting two shores. That night after I'd gone home, Rebecca called. "He wants to see Daniel every weekend," she said. "Says he's committed. That he'll do whatever it takes to build a relationship." That's good, right? I don't know. Maybe. But Elena, I saw something today that scared me. What? The way Daniel looked at him. Like he was meeting a celebrity. Like this stranger might be the answer to all his questions. And I realized, what if Daniel starts preferring him? What if the novelty of having a dad makes him pull away from me? Rebecca. Or from you, she continued. What if he doesn't need us anymore? I understood her fear. I'd felt it too, watching Daniel light up when his father gave him that gift. But I also knew something else. Daniel has spent 6 years without his father, I said quietly. But he's never spent a day without you. And these past 6 months he hasn't spent a day without me. That foundation doesn't just disappear because someone new shows up. I hope you're right. For the next month, Daniel's father, his name was Marcus, showed up every Saturday. He was punctual, polite, and seemingly genuine. He brought small gifts. Books, a puzzle, a model airplane they could build together. He asked about school and listened when Daniel talked about his caterpillar collection and his favorite library books. And slowly, painfully, I watched Daniel fall in love with the idea of having a father. It started small. Daniel began saying, "My dad told me." Or "Dad says." He'd rush to finish his homework on Friday nights so he'd have more time on Saturday. He asked Rebecca to buy him a new shirt because he wanted to look nice. Rebecca handled it with grace I didn't know she possessed. She encouraged Daniel's excitement while maintaining boundaries. But I could see the toll it took. Some evenings after Daniel went to bed, she'd call me and cry. "I know I should be happy," she said one night in early October. "He's being a good father so far. But I can't shake this feeling that the other shoe is going to drop." "Maybe it won't," I offered, though I shared her doubt. "Or maybe it will, and Daniel will be devastated. And I'll be the one picking up the pieces." Again. I didn't have answers for her. All I could do was show up, stay consistent, and be the steady presence Daniel needed, regardless of what his father did or didn't do. But then, 5 weeks into this new arrangement, something shifted. Marcus canceled the Saturday visit. His fiancée Amanda had a family emergency, he said. He'd make it up to Daniel next week. Next week came. He canceled again. Work conflict. The third week he showed up an hour late and left 30 minutes early. I wasn't there for any of these visits. Rebecca had established that Saturday was Marcus's time. But I saw the aftermath. Daniel's increasing anxiety. His questions. Did I do something wrong? Is Dad mad at me? "No, sweetheart," Rebecca would say, her jaw tight. "He's just busy." But we both knew what was happening. Marcus was losing interest. The novelty had worn off. Fatherhood, it turned out, required more than Saturday visits and wrapped gifts. It required sacrifice and consistency and showing up even when it was inconvenient. The breaking point came in late October. Marcus was supposed to take Daniel to a harvest festival. They'd been planning it for 2 weeks. Daniel had talked about nothing else. He'd picked out his costume, a dragon he and I had made together from cardboard and paint. He'd made a list of which games he wanted to play and which treats he wanted to try. I arrived that Saturday morning to help Daniel get ready. Marcus was supposed to pick him up at 10. 10 o'clock came and went. 10:30. 11. Daniel sat by the window in his dragon costume, his face pressed against the glass, watching every car that passed. "Maybe there's traffic," he said quietly. Rebecca checked her phone for the 100th time. No messages. No calls. At noon she finally called Marcus. It went to voicemail. By 1 o'clock, Daniel had taken off his costume and retreated to his room. I found him on his bed, face down, not crying but perfectly still. "Hey," I said softly, sitting beside him. "Want to talk?" He forgot about me. "You don't know that. Maybe something came up." Daniel rolled over and looked at me with eyes that seemed far older than 6. "He's leaving again, isn't he? Like before. He's going to disappear." I wanted to lie, to protect him. But I'd learned that children can sense dishonesty, and it damages trust more than truth ever could. "I don't know what your dad's going to do," I said carefully. "But I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be here. Today, tomorrow, next week. I'm not going anywhere. Promise. The word hung between us, heavy with meaning. Promises were sacred things to children. They were contracts written in hope. I promise. He sat up and hugged me, and I felt his small body shake with silent sobs. I held him and let him cry, stroking his hair and making soft soothing sounds. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of fury and heartbreak. She mouthed, "Still no answer." "You know what?" I said to Daniel. "That harvest festival is open until 5. What if we went? The 3 of us?" Daniel pulled back, wiping his nose. "Really? Really? We'll play every game, eat too much candy, and take pictures in your amazing dragon costume. What do you say?" A small smile broke through his tears. "Okay." We spent the afternoon at the festival. Daniel rode the carousel 3 times, won a stuffed pumpkin at the ring toss, and ate his weight in kettle corn. Rebecca and I flanked him, and when we took photos we made silly faces until he laughed genuine belly-deep laughs that erased some of the sadness from earlier. As the sun began to set and we walked back to the car, Daniel took both our hands again. "This was better anyway," he said quietly. "Dad probably wouldn't have gone on the carousel. He'd say he was too big." Rebecca and I exchanged glances over his head. That night Marcus finally called. Rebecca put him on speaker after Daniel was asleep. "I'm so sorry," Marcus said, and he sounded genuinely distressed. "Amanda's parents are going through a divorce, and it's been chaotic. I completely lost track of time and my phone died and—" "Stop," Rebecca said, her voice like ice. "Just stop. I'll make it up to him. Next weekend, we'll do something special." "No. You won't." Silence on the other end. "You don't get to do this to him again," Rebecca continued. "You don't get to show up when it's convenient and disappear when life gets hard. Daniel deserves better than that." "Rebecca, please. I gave you a chance. You promised you were different. But you're not. You're the same man who left when things got difficult. The same man who chose himself over his son. That's not fair. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough." Her voice cracked. "Daniel sat by that window for 3 hours waiting for you. 3 hours. Do you know what that does to a child?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then his voice smaller. "Let me talk to him. Let me explain." "No. You've done enough damage. If you want to be in Daniel's life, you do it through a formal custody arrangement with scheduled visits that you actually keep. You get a lawyer, you go through the proper channels, and you prove you're serious. Otherwise, stay away." "Rebecca." She hung up. We sat in silence in her kitchen, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator and the distant ticking of that hallway clock. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes. You protected your son." She nodded, but tears were streaming down her face. "Why does doing the right thing hurt so much?" I moved around the table and pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, and we stayed that way until the tea in our mugs went cold. Marcus never called back. No lawyer contacted Rebecca. No formal custody arrangement was proposed. He simply disappeared back into whatever life he'd built without his son, as if the past 2 months had been a brief experiment that failed. For Daniel, the aftermath was complicated. He didn't ask about his father for the first week. He went to school, did his homework, played with his toys. But there was a heaviness to him, a wariness that hadn't been there before. The second week he asked once, "Is Dad coming this Saturday?" Rebecca sat him down and explained, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "No, sweetheart. Dad isn't going to be visiting for a while. He's dealing with some grown-up things, and he needs time." "Did I do something wrong?" "No." Rebecca took his face in her hands. "You did nothing wrong. This is about him, not you. Do you understand?" He nodded, but I could see he didn't really believe it. Over the following weeks, I increased my time with Daniel. I was there every afternoon most weekends. We established new traditions: Wednesday movie nights, Friday pizza and board games, Sunday morning pancakes shaped like animals. Slowly, gradually, I watched Daniel begin to heal. He stopped asking about Marcus. He stopped sitting by the window on Saturdays. The drawings he made no longer included that third figure, just Mom, me, and Miss Elena. One evening in mid-November, while Rebecca was working a late shift, Daniel and I were making dinner together. He was carefully arranging cheese slices on a homemade pizza, his tongue poking out in concentration. "Miss Elena," he said without looking up, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you spend so much time with me?" I set down the knife I'd been using to chop vegetables. "What do you mean? You're not my mom. You're not paid to be here on weekends. So why do you come?" I knelt down beside him so we were eye level. "Because I love you, Daniel. And because I want to be here." He studied my face, those hazel eyes searching for truth. "Even though I'm not yours?" The question pierced me. "You are mine," I said firmly. "Maybe not in the way you're your mom's, but in every way that matters, in my heart, in my choices, in my time, you're mine." His lower lip trembled. "My dad didn't feel that way." "I know. And I'm so sorry he hurt you. But Daniel, his leaving doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. It means he wasn't capable of giving what you deserved. But you are. I'm going to try my hardest. Every single day." He threw his arms around my neck, and I held him tight. This child who'd somehow become the center of my world. "I love you too," he whispered. "Is it okay if I love you?" "Oh, sweetheart, of course it's okay. Even though you're not my mom? Love doesn't have rules like that. You can love lots of people in lots of different ways." When Rebecca came home that night, Daniel was asleep on the couch, his head in my lap. I'd been stroking his hair and watching a nature documentary on mute. She stood in the doorway, still in her scrubs, and just looked at us. Then she sat down on Daniel's other side. "He called you his almost mom today," she said quietly. "At school. His teacher mentioned it during pickup. She asked if there was something I needed to tell her about custody arrangements." My heart seized. "Rebecca, I never tried to." "I know." She placed a hand on my arm. "I told her you're family. Not a stepmom, not a guardian, but family. The kind that shows up and stays. Is that okay? Does he call me that?" She was quiet for a moment, looking down at her sleeping son. A year ago, it would have broken me. I would have felt like I was being replaced. But now, she looked at me and her eyes were bright. "Now I'm just grateful. He lost a father, but he gained you. That feels like grace." We sat together, the three of us, and I felt something settle in my chest. A sense of rightness. Of home. December came, bringing holiday preparations and the kind of cold that makes you appreciate warm kitchens. Daniel had a winter concert at school, and Rebecca asked if I'd come. "Of course," I said. "I put your name on the guest list. Under family." The night of the concert, I sat between Rebecca and her mother, a kind woman who'd flown in for the holidays and who hugged me like I belonged there. We watched Daniel sing in his little choir outfit, his voice strong and clear on Jingle Bells. Afterward, he ran to us and we both hugged him. Someone took a photo, the three of us laughing, Daniel in the middle, held by the two women who loved him most. Later, Rebecca posted the photo online with a simple caption. "Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who stay, who love your child like their own." The comments poured in, friends and relatives offering support, understanding, celebration. But one comment stood out, posted from an account I didn't recognize. "You're doing great without me. I'm glad he has you both." Rebecca showed me the comment, her hand shaking. "Should I respond?" "That's up to you." She stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the app without replying. He made his choice. We've made ours. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow, and the smell of cinnamon rolls baking in Rebecca's oven. I'd spent Christmas Eve at their house, and when Daniel had asked if I could stay over, Rebecca had insisted. "You're part of this now," she'd said simply. "You should be here Christmas morning." I woke up on the couch to the sound of small feet thundering down the stairs. Daniel appeared, still in his pajamas, his hair sticking up in every direction. "Miss Elena, Santa came. There are so many presents." Rebecca emerged from her bedroom, laughing. "Let me make coffee first, you little tornado." We gathered in the living room, the tree lights twinkling in the early morning darkness. Daniel distributed presents with serious concentration, reading each tag carefully. There were gifts from Rebecca's mother, from various relatives. And then Daniel picked up a small wrapped box with my name on it. "This one's from me," he said shyly, handing it to me. I made it. Well, Mom helped, but I did most of it. I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a small picture frame, decorated with painted macaroni and glitter. The photo inside was from the Harvest Festival, Daniel in his dragon costume, flanked by Rebecca and me, all of us laughing. But what made my breath catch was the text Daniel had written in careful, slightly crooked letters at the bottom. My family. I looked up, tears already spilling down my cheeks. Daniel was watching me anxiously. Do you like it? I pulled him into my arms. I love it. It's the most beautiful gift anyone has ever given me. He hugged me back fiercely. Then in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, he said, Mom said I could ask you something. What is it, sweetheart? He pulled back and looked at Rebecca, who nodded encouragingly. Would it be okay, he said slowly, if I called you Mom Elena? Not instead of Mom, but like another mom? Because you do mom things. You make me lunch and help with homework and tuck me in and tell me you're proud of me. And that feels like mom stuff. My heart cracked open. I looked at Rebecca, silently asking permission. She smiled through her own tears. I think that would be perfect. I turned back to Daniel. Yes, you can call me Mom Elena. I would be honored. He grinned, that rare full smile that transformed his whole face. Okay, Mom Elena. He tested the words, rolling them around in his mouth like candy. Mom Elena. I like how it sounds. The rest of the morning was a blur of wrapping paper and laughter. But that moment, Daniel claiming me, Rebecca allowing it, the three of us becoming something official, that moment carved itself into my bones. Over the following months, life settled into a new rhythm. I was no longer just the babysitter or even just family. I became something closer to a co-parent. I had a key to their house. I had a drawer in the bathroom for my toiletries. I had a voice in decisions about Daniel's school and activities and discipline. Rebecca and I became a team. We split responsibilities, backed each other up, took turns being the fun one and the firm one. We had our disagreements about bedtimes and screen time and how much candy was too much, but we talked through them like partners. And Daniel thrived. His grades improved. He made new friends. He joined a junior art class and discovered a talent for watercolors. The wariness in his eyes faded, replaced by the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're loved unconditionally. By the time spring arrived, Marcus had become a distant memory. Daniel mentioned him occasionally, usually matter-of-factly, the way you might mention a character in a book you'd read once. The wound had scarred over, and while it would always be there, it no longer defined him. One Saturday in April, Rebecca and I were sitting on her porch while Daniel played in the backyard. He was building an elaborate fort out of sticks and old blankets, narrating an adventure story to himself. I need to tell you something, Rebecca said, her voice serious. My stomach tightened. Okay. I'm updating my will. Making it official. If something happens to me, you'll be Daniel's guardian. I stared at her. Rebecca. I know it's a big ask, but there's no one else I trust the way I trust you. You love him. You've proven that over and over. And he needs you. She paused. I need you. Tears blurred my vision. Of course. Yes. Whatever you need. She squeezed my hand. Thank you. For everything. For showing up that first day and every day since. For loving us when we needed it most. You gave me a gift too. I said. You let me be a mother when I thought I'd never get the chance. You shared your son with me. That's not something I'll ever take for granted. We sat in comfortable silence watching Daniel play. The afternoon sun caught his hair, turning it golden. He looked up and waved at us and we both waved back. Mom Elena, come see what I built. We walked down to admire his fort, a lopsided but impressive structure complete with a flag made from an old pillowcase. This is my castle, he announced proudly. And you two are the queens. We're going to defend it from dragons. I thought you liked dragons, I said, remembering his costume. I do. But in this story they're the bad guys. He handed us each a stick. These are your swords. Now come on, the battle is starting. We played for an hour. The three of us acting out an elaborate fantasy involving dragons and knights, and a magical amulet hidden somewhere in the garden. Daniel directed us like a tiny general, and we followed his orders with exaggerated seriousness. When we finally collapsed on the grass, Breathless and laughing, Daniel lay between us, looking up at the sky. "This is my favorite day," he said. "We're just playing in the yard," Rebecca said, smiling. "I know, but we're all together. That makes it the best." Later that evening, after Daniel had gone to bed, I prepared to head home. Rebecca walked me to the door. "Stay," she said suddenly. "I mean, not just tonight. But what if you moved in? We have that spare room. We could make it yours. It seems silly for you to go back and forth when you're here almost every day anyway." I looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything. You're already part of this family. Let's make it official." 2 months later, I moved into the spare room on Maple Street. We painted it a warm sage green, and I filled it with my books and photographs and the little things that made a space mine. But I spent most of my time in the rest of the house, cooking in the kitchen, reading in the living room, tucking Daniel in at night. One evening in late June, almost exactly a year after I'd first walked into their lives, Daniel asked if we could take a photo together. The three of us crowded onto the couch, and Rebecca set up a timer on her phone. "Say family," Daniel shouted. "Family," we chorused. The photo captured us mid-laugh, slightly blurry, imperfect and real. Daniel printed it out at school and added it to his collection of drawings and pictures on his bedroom wall. I looked at it one night while tucking him in. All those images of the three of us, building snowmen, baking cookies, visiting museums, just sitting together. A chronicle of a family that hadn't started traditionally, but had become unshakable. "Mom, Elena?" Daniel said sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you came to babysit that day." I kissed his forehead. "Me too, Daniel. Me too. I thought I was just babysitting. I thought I was filling a few hours a week, making some extra money, helping out a single mother. But life has a way of surprising you, of taking something small and ordinary and transforming it into something miraculous. I didn't give birth to Daniel. I didn't raise him from infancy. But I showed up. I stayed. I loved him through his hurt and his healing. And in doing so, I became exactly what I'd always wanted to be. A mother. Not in the way I'd imagined. Not through the path I'd planned. But through the much harder, much more beautiful path of choosing each other every single day. Sometimes family isn't about blood or biology. Sometimes it's about who holds your hand during the scary parts. Who celebrates your victories. Who sees you at your worst and loves you anyway. Sometimes a family is a single mother who's brave enough to share her child with someone who needs him just as much as he needs her. Sometimes a family is a little boy who learns that love doesn't run out, that there's enough room in his heart for more than one mother. And sometimes family is a woman who walks into a house as a babysitter and walks out as something so much more. What would you have done if you were in my position? Would you have let yourself fall in love with a child who wasn't yours? Would you have risked the heartbreak for the chance at the joy? Tell me your thoughts. I'd love to hear your story.